Okay, we have my sear in the vise. I'm going to show you exactly where we're going to start taking off material. Now this is super magnified. This little thing isn't any bigger than a flea. And like I said, if you lose it on a dirty shop floor like mine is, you're gonna be hunted down for 10 minutes. Let's see if it'll even focus. It'll probably try to focus on my file here. Let's see if we can get this. We're going to be taking off material right there. I've already started it on the hair just to get a little head start on you. But you can kind of see the angle where we're going to start filing it. Again, this is a diamond file that I got off of. It's a fine diamond file. I think it's 600 grit, something like that. I got 6 of them, I think it is, from Harbor Freight for $6 last time I was over there. Why pay more, you know? I mean, for what you're going to be using it for, it's not like you're doing jewelry on a daily basis or anything like that. You're just going to be working on gun parts with it, and to be honest with you, you know, if you used it every day for a month, you might notice it, but you're going to be using it at once a month, maybe 2 times a month. So why pay more? You know, you can buy, you know, in your lifetime, you could buy 3 sets and still be cheaper than one of the more expensive sets. So what we're going to do is we're going to get that angle right there, and I'm going to kind of use my with a guide and just barely remove material. Less is good in this instance, because we don't want to remove too much. We're just going to barely start removing material. I'm going to get down here with my glass. Just barely. Don't go any more than 10 strokes before you check your work. I'm not putting very much pressure on that. I don't know if you can tell that or not, but I'm basically just laying this file on there, putting about 2 ounces of pressure on there and just guiding it. And I can feel it cutting. Excuse me, with these MIM parts, like I said before, you don't want to get down into the meat, because if it is tempered, it's only tempered on the outside with the first couple thousandths of an inch. And if you get down into the meat of that, you're going to be dealing with a lot of soft metal, and you don't want to do that. We're just going to barely graze this angle here. We're just barely grazing. Like I said, less is better. I'd rather remove too little material than too much, because you can't put it back. You're better off buying a new one. Now you can see there, as many swipes as I made, I've already taken off some material. Not much. But that's what we want. We don't want much. We're talking about tiny things here. We're not talking about shaping the front end of a Chevy. We're talking about, you know, changing the geometry of how a trigger engages a sear, and the little minute workings of these little triggers here. And we're going to round that just a hair, just to get a little angle on it, not much. And be sure not to put too much pressure on the side there and cut on into that metal there. This is barely a scratch. That's not even removing material, so be careful of that. Just kind of leave it off to the side just a hair. And I'm not putting any pressure there. I'm just kind of try to round it a little bit. Just barely removing material. Actually, my camera's working better than my magnifier, so I'm gonna add a little. There, you see that glare changing the. You see that? It's rounded. Of course, this isn't the best angle, but from the side view, it would be uniform. You want to round it. You don't want it flat. I'm gonna slightly round it, and you see that little. I use that little hole there in that MIM part as a little indent there from the forge, from the cast, is a reference. You don't ever want to go past that outer circle there. You don't really want to get too close to it. You want to kind of keep its distance. Just barely scrape. It doesn't take much, especially with these fine grit files. You know, people think filing, well, I wouldn't dare put a bastard file to this thing. Heck, you'd saw it in half in like 3 seconds. You'd have a piece that you couldn't work with. You'd have to buy a complete new sear assembly, or a sear housing assembly, because you messed up your sear. I've already tried this one time. Just out of curiosity, I called Smith & Wesson to see if I could replace my sear. And of course I got the lawyerly response, which I don't, you know, if I owned a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar company, I wouldn't mess with it either. But no, we can't do that. You need to send us your pistol back and we'll fit your sear for your pistol. So they don't even sell sears. You have to buy a complete sear assembly from Midway or somebody like that. But to get back to the topic, you see that angle there that I cut? Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my Dremel and I'm going to put a little of my number 5 on the end of, let's see if I can get end of my buffing wheel there. And you don't need to see that. Just a little bit of green. That's the color of the number 5. Okay, just get enough on there just to coat it there, just a little green, and it doesn't even have to be uniform because you're just going to be buffing out a part. It doesn't have to be completely uniform all the way around. And what you're going to do is you're going to get that and buff that spot up real good. Now this won't cut. Ah, dagnabbit. Hate being Mr. Popular on a Saturday afternoon. Turn that thing off. Okay. Just buff that up. It won't hurt if you hit anything else. You're not sanding anything. You're just buffing. You're not removing any material. Like, I mean, even if you are moving a little material, it's nothing worth mentioning. It's just a little brass, you know, a little coloring on the outside. Really fine. Now let's get in there with our Q-tip that I talked about and clean that bad boy up. Get her all cleaned up there, nice and shiny. It's like a new penny. Okay, and let's do it one more time just to be safe. Put a little bit, oh shoot, put a little bit more green on it. Tip. Okay. Now, let's go back over here and buff it up real nice. You won't hurt, you know, if you hit something else. You're not using a sanding wheel here. You're just buffing. You're polishing. It won't hurt if you hit anything. It's just going to make it nice and shiny. Okay, that is with the green. You don't want to use the I think it's blue, like a baby blue, number 2. That does have an emery compound in it. It's almost like a talc powder. Now that wheel, you say talc powder, well, that doesn't move much material. Well, you get that wheel going at 4,000 RPMs or what have you with talc powder on it. You know, that's what they use for lapping compounds and stuff. You're gonna remove material, as I'll show you here in a minute. It's very little, like I said, but with this number 2 green that we're using right here, this little, I guess it would be equivalent to like a jeweler's rouge or something like that. You're just shining. You're not doing anything. I mean, I know guys that even use flits. I don't use flits because I've got all these other neat little gadgets and toys to mess with. So there you go. There you see the angle there on our sear that you want to cut on your engagement point. You can experiment with this, but I will tell you this: do not go past. You'll see, you can't see it on mine right now because of the way the light is, but there's a little imprinted circle right there from the cast. Do not go past that circle. That's when you get into the meat and you get past the point of you're at bingo there, because you can't go any further and you can't come back, because it's just you don't want to get past that little circle. Let's just go there, because it's a real fine point there between failure and fine. So let me get back to another area here. I'm going to show you what we're going to do on the back side of the sear. Give me just a second. I'm going to cut and switch her over.